Jiang Ming blurted out, "You know that you are the young master of the Wade family. Since you are living in such a miserable life, why don't you take the initiative to find them? As long as you take the initiative to find them, you don't have to live a life of being looked down upon?" Charlie smiled and said, "This is the difference between the two of us. I came from an extraordinary background, but I am willing to be humble. You come from a humble background, but you are not willing to be humble and ordinary. If you are like me and willing to be humble, how can you commit crimes? What's the big mistake you made today? I don't understand." Jiang Ming desperately shook his head, already a little irrational, and said, "I don't understand. I really don't understand. Is it because you saw money when you were young? Can you go on?" "Perhaps." Charlie smiled faintly, and said, "When I was young, I was really rich in clothes and every other aspect. The life I lived at that time may be something you can't imagine now, but what about it? I didn't live well. Happy not, my parents were not happy either." Jiang Ming asked incredulously, "Then are you willing to suffer poverty? When you were a kid, you obviously experienced a rich life, but when you have nothing, don't you miss that life?" Charlie sighed lightly and said again, "Jiang Ming, you take money too seriously. You can take money very seriously, but I can't take money too seriously. There are certain things that money can never match. For example, your ideals, your love, your principles, and your conscience. Once you put your position in the wrong place, you will do things wrong. Some things can be changed if they are wrong, and some things cannot be changed even if they are wrong." At this moment, Jiang Ming finally realized how humble he was. Because Charlie in front of him, Charlie who grew up in the orphanage with him since childhood, turned out to be the young master of the Wade family of Eastcliff. It was also at this moment that he knew how far he was from Charlie. He finally knew the gap between the two. It's the gap between the vulture and the eagle. It is the gap between pheasant and phoenix. It is the crucian carp that crosses the river, the gap with the real dragon on earth. As the saying goes, the vulture is well aware of eagle's ambition. This sentence is now placed on himself and Charlie. It is really appropriate. It was also at this moment that Jiang Ming finally gave in completely. He knew that not only did he lose in this life, but also in the next life. It is no longer possible for himself to seek revenge from Charlie, and if Charlie kills him, it is as easy as crushing an ant. He is the same as Lu Zhaochen's family, and the members of the beggar gang, except that Charlie is a real dragon on earth, a small fish and shrimp that yawns to death. Jiang Ming's face was instantly filled with despair. Just now, he was thinking about his next life, or seeking revenge on Charlie in the next life. But at this moment, he really understood that even if he had another life, he probably wouldn't have the qualification to seek revenge against Charlie. The most painful thing in the world is to realize that you will never be able to catch up with your enemy in a few lifetimes. At this moment, Jiang Ming is already completely ashamed. He looked at Charlie with tears and choked up. "Charlie, I take it. I really take it. You kill me. I am tired of the world, and I am tired of myself. Please let me out." Charlie nodded and looked at him seriously. "Jiang Ming, of all the people who are going to die today, your crime is the lightest. But also among everyone who is going to die today, everyone committed a capital crime, of course. Including you. I hope you can have a good baby in your next life." Jiang Ming smiled miserably and said, "In my next life, after hearing you just finished your story, I suddenly felt that a person like me might be born with a hard life. If given another life, I can't do it. Still an orphan, maybe it's still a stinking silk in the eyes of a few people." Charlie nodded with a flat expression and said, "In this case, then I hope you can be a good person in your next life." Jiang Ming nodded seriously and smiled sadly. "As you said, I myself have begun to hate myself. I hope I can be a good person in my next life." After that, his whole person was calmer. He was scared of incontinence just now, but at this time, he was able to hold on calmly and stood up by himself. He stood in front of Charlie and said seriously, "Charlie, let me go on the road, send those children back safely, tell Aunt Lena that I am wrong, tell all my friends, I am wrong. I regret it. I used my life to atone for my sins. Charlie nodded and said, "Since you really know that you were wrong, then I will give you a happy one." With that said, Charlie said to Isaac, "Weld all those people in Iveco, and then let the helicopter hoist the car into river." "Okay, master." The helicopter took off again. Ive Curry, the core member of the beggar gang and Lu Jiaochen's family, kept crying out the last despair. Everyone was struggling hard, but at this time not only they were welded to death, but the car was also welded to death. It was impossible for them to escape. Then the helicopter simply threw the Iveco full of sins into the river. This Iveco made a rapid bubble on the surface of the river, and then it sank completely to the bottom. Charlie turned his head to look at Zhang Ming at this time, and said lightly, "I promise to give you a pleasure, not to make you die as painful as they did." Zhang Ming smiled miserably and nodded. "Thank you, Charlie." Charlie nodded slightly, and said to a man in black next to him, "Take him to the bridge and give him something simple." The man in black nodded, "Okay, master." Before the man in black could get started, Zhang Ming staggered towards the bridge. He climbed onto the guardrail, turned to Charlie and said, "Charlie, give me a good time." Charlie looked at the man in black and nodded slightly.